The wine glass trembles in Victoria's hand. She's standing in her kitchen, the one with imported Italian marble and custom cabinetry, watching through the window as her husband Ethan laughs into his phone in the driveway. His back is to her. His shoulders shake with that easy joy she hasn't seen directed at her in months. He whispers something, smiles, ends the call. When he turns and sees her watching, the smile dies instantly. "Who was that?" she asks when he walks in. "Client?" He sets his keys down. Doesn't meet her eyes. Just work stuff. But Victoria saw how he smiled, and she knows that smile wasn't for a client. Victoria remembered their first meeting at the gala, a lifetime ago. She was 28 then, fresh off completing her MBA, working as a financial analyst at her father's investment firm. Her father, William Chen, had built Chen Capital from nothing, turning it into one of the most respected private equity firms in the Midwest. Victoria was being groomed to eventually take over. She wore a black silk dress that night. Understated. Elegant. Ethan wore a navy suit that fit him perfectly. He worked in marketing for a mid-sized tech firm. Charming. Articulate. He made her laugh within the first 5 minutes of conversation, a genuine laugh, not the polite kind she'd perfected for business dinners. "So you're telling me," he said, leaning in with that crooked grin, "that you actually enjoy reading financial statements for fun?" "I find them soothing," she replied, matching his playful tone. "That's the most terrifying thing I've heard all night." They dated for 18 months before he proposed. Her father had reservations. "He seems like a nice young man, but Victoria, be careful. Money changes people. Make sure you know who he really is before you say yes." Victoria assured him she knew exactly who Ethan was. Looking back now, standing in her kitchen with that trembling wine glass, she realizes how wrong she'd been. The wedding was beautiful. 200 guests at the Drake Hotel, white roses everywhere. Her best friend Melissa stood beside her as maid of honor, radiant in champagne-colored silk. Victoria had met Melissa during undergrad at Northwestern. They were sorority sisters, roommates, and eventually the kind of friends who knew each other's deepest secrets. When Victoria's mother died from cancer during junior year, Melissa was the one who held her through the worst nights. "I couldn't have made it through without you," Victoria told her once. Melissa squeezed her hand. "That's what best friends are for." At the wedding reception, Melissa gave a toast that made everyone cry. "Victoria is the strongest, kindest, most brilliant woman I know," she said, raising her glass. "Ethan, you're the luckiest man alive. Don't ever forget that." Ethan stood and pulled Melissa into a hug. "I won't. I promise." Victoria remembers that moment perfectly. The way they embraced. The way Melissa's hand lingered on his shoulder just a second too long. She tells herself now that she's reading too much into a memory, that hindsight creates patterns where none existed, but part of her wonders if it started even then. The first 3 years of marriage were good. Not perfect, no marriage is, but good. They bought a house in Wilmette, a suburb north of Chicago. 4 bedrooms, a backyard with mature oak trees, walking distance to the lake. Victoria's father helped with the down payment as a wedding gift, though Ethan insisted on paying him back. "I appreciate it, William, but we can handle our mortgage," Ethan said over dinner one night. Her father smiled. "Pride is good, son. Just don't let it blind you to practical help." Ethan bristled slightly at that. Victoria noticed, but said nothing. She was making good money at Chen Capital, 6 figures easily, with bonuses that doubled her base salary in good years. Ethan was doing well too, though his income was significantly less. He never said it bothered him, but she caught him sometimes looking at the statements on her desk with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Everything okay?" she'd ask. "Yeah, fine. Just thinking about work." She believed him. She always believed him. Melissa was a constant presence in their lives. She lived in Lakeview, about 30 minutes south. She worked in public relations and was between boyfriends more often than not. "I'm married to my career," she'd joke over brunch. "Someone has to be." She came over most weekends. She knew the alarm code to their house. She had a key for emergencies. Victoria never thought twice about it. Why would she? Melissa was family. More than family, really. She was the sister Victoria never had. They went to yoga together on Wednesday evenings. They had standing brunch reservations at this little French cafe in Evanston every Saturday. They texted daily, sometimes dozens of messages, about everything from work drama to what they were making for dinner. Ethan got along with Melissa easily. Maybe too easily. But Victoria dismissed that thought immediately. She wasn't the jealous type. And besides, it was Melissa, her best friend since college, the woman who held her when her mother died. "You're so lucky," one of Victoria's co-workers said once. "My husband barely tolerates my friends." Victoria smiled. "I know. Ethan's great about it." He was great about it. That should have been the first clue. The problem started slowly. It wasn't one big event. It was 1,000 small things that accumulated like dust on a windowsill, invisible until the light hits it just right. Ethan started working late more often. "Big campaign launching," he'd text. "Don't wait up." He stopped initiating sex. When Victoria tried, he was tired or stressed or just not in the mood. At first, she attributed it to work pressure. Then she started to wonder. He became protective of his phone. He'd always been casual about it before, leaving it face up on the counter, asking her to check his messages while he was driving. But now he kept it in his pocket constantly, screen down when he said it anywhere. "Who are you texting?" she asked once, trying to keep her tone light. "Just coordinating with the team." He locked the screen. "Work stuff." "At 9 p.m. on a Saturday?" "You know how it is. Clients don't respect boundaries." She knew how it was. She worked 80-hour weeks sometimes, but something about his explanation felt rehearsed. Then there was the distance, emotional distance, like a fog settling between them. They still had dinner together most nights, still slept in the same bed, still went through all the motions of marriage. But the intimacy was gone. The connection that made her want to tell him every small detail of her day had evaporated. She tried talking to him about it. "I feel like we're disconnected lately," she said one evening, curled up next to him on the couch. "Like you're somewhere else even when you're here." He squeezed her knee absently, eyes on his laptop. "I'm sorry, Vic. Work's been insane. It'll calm down soon." "When?" "Soon." But soon never came. 6 months before that moment in the kitchen with the trembling wine glass, something shifted. Victoria can't pinpoint exactly what triggered her suspicion. Maybe it was the way Ethan smiled at a text message before quickly locking his phone. Maybe it was finding a credit card statement with charges at restaurants she'd never been to. Maybe it was just instinct, that animal awareness that something in your environment has changed. She started paying attention, really paying attention. Ethan said he was working late on Wednesday nights, every Wednesday without fail. But when she called his office line at 7:30 one evening, it went straight to the automated system. "Our offices are currently closed. Please call back during business hours." She called his cell. He answered on the third ring, slightly breathless. "Hey, babe, what's up?" "Just checking in. Still at the office?" A pause. Barely a second, but she caught it. "Yeah, just stepped out for coffee. It's going to be another late one." "Okay, love you." "Love you too." She sat with her phone for 5 minutes after hanging up, staring at the ceiling of their bedroom. He was lying. She didn't know what about exactly, but he was lying. The next Wednesday, Victoria told Ethan she was working late herself. "Big pitch for a new client," she said over breakfast. "I probably won't be home until 10. "No problem. I've got that campaign meeting anyway." She went to work, stayed until 6. then drove home and parked her car 2 blocks away, walking back to position herself across the street with a clear view of their driveway. She felt ridiculous, like a character in a bad TV movie, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Ethan left the house at 6:45. He wore jeans and a casual button-down, not work clothes. He got in his car, checked his phone, smiled at something on the screen. Victoria followed him. She stayed 3 cars back, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. He drove south toward the city, taking the Kennedy Expressway into Lakeview, Melissa's neighborhood. Victoria's stomach dropped. No, it couldn't be. Not Melissa, not her best friend. That was insane. Ethan parked on a residential street lined with brownstones. Victoria pulled over half a block back, watching as he got out, checked his phone again, and walked up to a building she recognized immediately. Melissa's building. He pressed the buzzer. The door clicked open. He went inside. Victoria sat in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe normally. There could be a dozen innocent explanations. Maybe he was planning a surprise for her birthday. Maybe Melissa needed help with something. Maybe they were coordinating a gift. Maybe... Her phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. "Wine night at my place. You in?" Victoria stared at the message. Then she looked up at Melissa's building, at the warm glow of lights in the third-floor windows. Her husband was in there right now, with her best friend, who had just invited her over, knowing full well that Ethan was already there. Before we continue with Victoria's discovery, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button if you're invested in this story. Drop your city in the comments below. Let's build this community together. Now back to Victoria's nightmare. Victoria didn't go up to the apartment. She wanted to. Every instinct screamed at her to march up those stairs, to throw open Melissa's door, to demand an explanation. But something stopped her. A cold, calculating voice in the back of her mind that sounded eerily like her father's. "Don't react. Gather information first." She texted back. "Can't tonight. Still at work. Rain check?" Melissa replied immediately. "Aw, bummer. Yes, definitely. Miss you, girl." Victoria set her phone down carefully, as if it might shatter. She sat in that car for 2 hours. At 9:15, Ethan emerged from the building. His hair was mussed. He was smiling, scrolling through his phone as he walked to his car. Victoria waited until he drove away before starting her own engine. She drove home slowly, methodically, following every traffic law. She parked in the garage, walked into the house, poured herself a glass of wine with steady hands. When Ethan arrived 20 minutes later, she was sitting at the kitchen island with a magazine open in front of her. "Hey," he said, kissing the top of her head. "How was work?" "Long, productive. You?" "Same. Just got out of that meeting." She took a sip of wine. "How'd it go?" "Good. Really good, actually. Think we nailed the pitch." Every word was a lie. Every single word. "I'm glad," she said. She smiled at him. He smiled back. And in that moment, Victoria Chen made a decision. She wasn't going to confront him yet. She wasn't going to fall apart or scream or cry or do any of the things the betrayed wife was supposed to do. She was going to get proof. Undeniable, ironclad, divorce court-ready proof. And then she was going to destroy him. The next morning, Victoria called in sick to work. "I think I caught something," she told her assistant. "Canceling my meetings today." Instead, she drove to a small office in Schaumburg and met with a private investigator named Patricia Reeves. Patricia was in her 50s, with short gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything about Victoria in the first 30 seconds. Her office was sparse. Desk, 2 chairs, filing cabinet, no personal photos, no decorations. "What can I do for you, Mrs. Brooks?" Patricia asked, folding her hands on the desk. Victoria had rehearsed this. I need to know if my husband is having an affair. What makes you think he is? Victoria laid out the evidence. The late nights. The protective behavior with his phone. Following him to Melissa's apartment. Patricia took notes without judgment. Do you want me to confirm the affair, or do you want a full report? Communications, financial irregularities, everything? Everything. That's not cheap. Money isn't a concern. Patricia nodded slowly. Most people in your position want to know the truth, but hope I'll prove them wrong. You don't strike me as one of those people. I'm not. Good. Hope is expensive and usually disappointing. Patricia pulled out a contract. I'll need a retainer. $5,000 to start. Victoria wrote the check without hesitation. While Patricia worked, Victoria had to maintain the illusion of normalcy. It was harder than she expected. She had dinner with Ethan every night, made conversation about her day, laughed at his jokes, let him kiss her goodnight before rolling over to stare at the ceiling for hours, her mind racing through scenarios and strategies. On Saturday, she had brunch with Melissa at their usual spot. Melissa looked beautiful as always. Blonde hair pulled back in a casual ponytail, minimal makeup, that effortless style that came naturally to her. She ordered the eggs Benedict. She complained about a difficult client. She asked Victoria about work. You seem distracted, Melissa said, reaching across the table to squeeze Victoria's hand. Everything okay? Victoria smiled. Just tired. Big project at work. You work too hard. Pot, kettle. Melissa laughed. That easy, familiar laugh that Victoria had heard 1,000 times over a decade of friendship. How's Ethan? Melissa asked, taking a sip of her mimosa. Victoria's hand tightened slightly on her fork. He's good, busy with work. Aren't you both always? Melissa shook her head. You guys need a vacation. When's the last time you went somewhere together? It's been a while. You should do it. Life's short, you know. Victoria met her friend's eyes across the table. Those blue eyes that had cried with her at her mother's funeral, that had celebrated every milestone and success, that had looked at her with genuine love and affection for 10 years. You're right, Victoria said softly. Life is short. After brunch, they hugged goodbye on the sidewalk. Melissa held on an extra second. Love you, Vic. Love you, too. Victoria walked to her car and sat in the driver's seat for 5 minutes, breathing carefully before she could trust herself to drive. Patricia called 6 days later. We need to meet, she said. I have your report. They met at a coffee shop in Oak Park, far enough from Victoria's usual haunts that she wouldn't run into anyone she knew. Patricia slid a thick manila envelope across the table. I'm sorry, she said. I wish I had better news. Victoria opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Ethan and Melissa entering her apartment building. Time-stamped. Wednesday, 6:47 p.m. Ethan and Melissa having dinner at an Italian restaurant in Wicker Park, his hand covering hers on the table. Ethan and Melissa kissing in his car, parked on a residential street, her hand in his hair. There were also phone records. Patricia had gotten access through a contact Victoria didn't ask about. Hundreds of texts between Ethan's number and Melissa's. Calls lasting 30, 40, 50 minutes. And there was financial information, hotel charges, dinners at expensive restaurants. A weekend trip to Milwaukee 3 months ago when Ethan told Victoria he had a work conference and Melissa said she was visiting her sister in Minnesota. How long? Victoria's voice sounded far away, like someone else was speaking. Based on the records, at least a year, maybe longer. A year. 12 months of lies, of him coming home to their bed after being with her best friend, of the two of them probably laughing about her behind her back, of coordinating their stories, of stolen moments and secret smiles. Victoria thought she'd been prepared for this. She wasn't. Are you okay? Patricia asked quietly. No. Victoria closed the envelope carefully. But I will be. That night, Victoria couldn't sleep. She lay next to Ethan, this man she'd promised to love forever, who'd promised the same to her, and tried to reconcile the person snoring softly beside her with the person in those photographs. How did he do it? How did he look her in the eye every day? How did he make love to her, infrequently but still, after being with Melissa? How did he sit across from both of them at dinner parties and birthdays and holidays, knowing what he was doing? And Melissa. God, Melissa. The betrayal from Ethan was devastating. But Melissa's betrayal felt like something worse, something deeper. It wasn't just about sex or romance. It was about trust, about sisterhood, about 10 years of intimacy and vulnerability and shared secrets. Victoria had told Melissa everything, her fears about taking over her father's company, her worries about whether she'd be a good mother someday, her insecurities about her body, her work, her life. And Melissa had taken all of that information, had held Victoria's heart in her hands, and had decided that sleeping with her husband was acceptable. At 3 in the morning, Victoria got up. She went downstairs to her home office, the one with the mahogany desk her father had given her when she made partner at Chen Capital. She opened her laptop, and she started planning. The first step was protecting her assets. Victoria scheduled a meeting with her father the next morning at his downtown office. He was 67 now, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, still coming into the office every day, even though he'd officially retired 2 years ago. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" he asked when she arrived. Victoria closed the door behind her and sat down. "I need your help with something serious." William Chen had built an empire by reading people. He read his daughter now in seconds. "Ethan?" "Ethan and Melissa." His jaw tightened. "Tell me." She told him everything. The surveillance, the photographs, the year-long affair. When she finished, her father was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window overlooking Michigan Avenue. "I'm sorry, Victoria. I wish I'd been wrong about him. You warned me. That doesn't make me happy about being right." He turned to face her. "What do you need?" "I need to move assets. Everything that's in my name or jointly held. I need it protected before I file for divorce." Her father nodded slowly. "That's smart. He'll come after your money in the settlement." "I know. That's why I'm going to make sure there's nothing for him to come after." Over the next 2 weeks, Victoria and her father worked meticulously. She transferred the house into her father's name. On paper, it looked like a gift, a way for William to reduce his estate taxes. The documentation was airtight. Her investment accounts, her stock portfolio, her stake in Chen Capital, all of it moved into a trust with her father as the trustee. The paperwork claimed it was estate planning, a common strategy for wealthy families. She emptied the joint savings account, moving the money into a new account in her father's name. She'd been the primary contributor to that account anyway. Her bonuses and salary dwarfed Ethan's income. By the time she was done, on paper, Victoria Brooks owned almost nothing. The house, her father's, the investments, in trust, the savings, transferred for estate planning. Everything was legal. Everything would hold up in court, and when Ethan tried to claim half of her assets in the divorce, he'd find there was nothing to claim. "He'll fight this," her father warned. "Let him fight. He'll lose." But Victoria wasn't done. She'd protected her money. Now she needed to destroy theirs. She started with research. Ethan worked for a tech company called Zenith Marketing, mid-sized firm, about 200 employees, specializing in digital campaigns for corporate clients. Ethan was an account director. Decent salary, good benefits, but nothing spectacular. Melissa worked for a boutique PR firm called Sterling Communications. Small operation, maybe 20 people, but they represented some significant clients in the hospitality and entertainment industries. Both of them had morality clauses in their employment contracts. Victoria knew this because she'd helped Ethan negotiate his contract 4 years ago. She'd seen the language. Grounds for immediate termination included behavior that could damage the company's reputation. An affair between colleagues? That was messy but manageable. An affair that involved lying, deception, and ethical violations? That could be a problem. Victoria needed to find those violations. She started with Melissa. Victoria had access to Melissa's email, not through hacking, but because Melissa had given her the password years ago. "In case something happens to me," Melissa had said once, "you'll be able to access my accounts and handle things." Victoria logged in. She felt a twinge of guilt. This was an invasion of privacy, a violation of trust. But then she remembered the photographs. Melissa kissing Ethan. Melissa in a hotel room with Victoria's husband. The guilt evaporated. She started reading. Most of the emails were mundane. Client communications, internal memos, brunch plans. But then Victoria found a folder labeled Personal. Inside were emails between Melissa and Ethan, dozens of them. "Can't wait to see you Wednesday. Counting down the hours. Last night was perfect. I replayed every moment all day. Do you think she suspects? You seemed nervous at dinner. She's clueless. She trusts me completely." Victoria read that last line 3 times. She's clueless. She trusts me completely. Her hands were shaking. She kept reading, and then she found something interesting. An email from Melissa to Ethan, sent 4 months ago. "I talked to David about the Henderson account. He's willing to push it to Zenith if you can get me the inside info on their marketing strategy. This could be huge for both of us." David was Melissa's boss at Sterling Communications. The Henderson account was a hotel chain worth millions in potential revenue, and Melissa was asking Ethan to provide confidential information from a Zenith client pitch so that Sterling could undercut Zenith's proposal. That wasn't just unethical, that was corporate espionage. Victoria took screenshots of everything. She found more. Emails discussing client information that Ethan had no right to share. Details about upcoming campaigns, pricing strategies, internal deliberations, all of it flowing from Ethan to Melissa, who used it to benefit her own company. They'd been trading information back and forth for at least 6 months. Victoria compiled everything into a detailed report. She documented every instance of information sharing, every ethical violation, every breach of confidentiality. Then she sent anonymous copies to the HR departments at both Zenith Marketing and Sterling Communications. The subject line, "Evidence of corporate espionage and ethics violations." She didn't sign it. She didn't editorialize. She just presented the evidence and let it speak for itself. 3 days later, Ethan came home early from work. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. "Vic," he said, "we need to talk." She was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. "About what?" "I got fired today." Victoria set down the knife slowly. "What? Why?" They said there was an investigation, that I'd been sharing confidential client information. They had emails, Vic. Emails I don't even remember sending. That's insane. Can you fight it?" He slumped into a chair. "I don't know. Maybe. But they're threatening legal action. They're saying I cost them a major contract." Victoria moved to stand beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I'm so sorry, honey, that's awful." He looked up at her with genuine fear in his eyes, and Victoria felt nothing. No sympathy, no compassion, just cold satisfaction. Melissa was fired 2 days after that. She called Victoria, sobbing. "They're saying I engaged in corporate espionage, that I used confidential information from competitors. Vic, I don't know what to do. They're talking about lawsuits." "That's terrible," Victoria said, her voice perfectly calibrated with concern. How did this happen? I don't know. Someone sent HR all these emails. Emails between me and... She stopped abruptly. Between you and who? Just someone I was working with. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm screwed. My entire career is over. I'm sure there's something you can do. Like what? They have evidence, Vic. Real evidence. I'm so stupid. I'm so fucking stupid. Victoria let the silence stretch. Can we meet? Melissa asked finally. I really need to talk to someone. I'm falling apart here. Of course. When? Tonight? Please? They met at a wine bar in Lincoln Park. Melissa looked terrible. Red eyes, no makeup, hair pulled back in a messy bun. She'd been crying. Victoria hugged her. Hey, it's going to be okay. No, it's not. Melissa ordered a bottle of wine immediately. My life is falling apart. They sat in a corner booth. Melissa drank her first glass quickly, then poured another. There's something I need to tell you, Melissa said. Something I should have told you a long time ago. Okay. I've been seeing someone. Someone I shouldn't be seeing. Victoria's heart was hammering, but she kept her face neutral. What do you mean? He's married. Melissa. I know. I know it's awful. But I love him, Vic. I really love him. And now everything's falling apart and I don't know what to do. Victoria reached across the table and took her friend's hand. Who is it? Melissa looked at her with tears streaming down her face. And Victoria waited. Waited for her best friend to confess. To apologize. To at least have the decency to tell the truth. I can't tell you, Melissa whispered finally. I can't. Victoria squeezed her hand. It's okay. You don't have to tell me anything you're not ready to share. Melissa cried harder. And Victoria sat there, holding the hand of the woman who'd betrayed her, thinking about how satisfying it would be when everything finally came crashing down. The lawsuit started 2 weeks later. Both Zenith Marketing and Sterling Communications filed civil suits against Ethan and Melissa for breach of contract, violation of confidentiality agreements, and corporate espionage. The damages sought were in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Ethan was panicking. We need to hire lawyers, Vic, good lawyers, but I don't know how we're going to afford this. I'll talk to my father, Victoria said. Maybe he can help. Really? Of course, we're married. We're in this together. He hugged her. Thank you. God, I don't know what I'd do without you. Victoria hugged him back and said nothing. She'd been sleeping in the guest room for a week, claiming she had insomnia and didn't want to disturb him. It was easier that way. She didn't have to pretend intimacy. Didn't have to feel his body next to hers and think about him with Melissa. On a Thursday night, she heard his phone buzz on the kitchen counter. He was in the shower. Victoria looked at the screen. A text from Melissa. Can you talk? I'm scared. Victoria picked up the phone. She knew his passcode. He'd never changed it from their wedding anniversary. She opened his messages. The thread with Melissa went back over a year. Hundreds of messages. Missing you already. Can't stop thinking about last night. She's working late again. Come over. I love you. I love you too. Victoria read them all, every single one. When Ethan came out of the shower, his phone was back on the counter where he'd left it. Victoria was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop. Everything okay? He asked, toweling his hair. Fine, just working. He kissed the top of her head. Don't stay up too late. I won't. The next morning, Victoria scheduled a meeting with her divorce attorney. His name was Robert Chen, no relation, despite the last name. He was one of the best family law attorneys in Chicago, known for his aggressive tactics and his winning record. I need to file for divorce, Victoria said. Robert pulled out a legal pad. Grounds? Adultery. I have extensive proof. She showed him everything. The photographs, the phone records, the text messages, the emails. Robert reviewed it all carefully. This is solid, very solid. But I'm going to warn you, if he hired a good attorney, this could get ugly. Let it get ugly. I want everything. The house, the assets, everything. What assets? From what you've told me, most of your significant holdings are now in your father's name or in trust. Victoria smiled. Exactly. Robert looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled back. I think I understand. You've already protected everything. I have. Smart. Very smart. So what do you want from this divorce? I want him to have nothing. I want him to understand exactly what he's lost. Consider it done. Victoria filed for divorce on a Monday morning. Ethan was served the papers at a coffee shop where he was meeting with his lawyer about the corporate lawsuits. According to Patricia, who Victoria had kept on retainer, Ethan's face went white when he read the petition. He called Victoria immediately. She let it go to voicemail. He called again. 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 Finally, she answered. Hello? Vic, what the hell is this? Divorce papers? Yes. You're divorcing me? Why? Victoria laughed. She couldn't help it. The audacity of the question was almost funny. Why? She repeated. You really want to know why? Yes. We can work through whatever's going on. We can go to counseling. We can... I know about Melissa. Silence. Complete, total silence. I know everything, Ethan. The affair, the lying, all of it. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Vic, I can explain. I don't want your explanation. I want you out of my house by Friday. Your house? It's our house. Check the deed. It's in my father's name now. Has been for 3 weeks. You have no claim to it. Another silence. She could practically hear him processing, realizing. The assets, he said slowly. You moved the assets. I did. That's illegal. You can't just transfer marital property. It's perfectly legal. Estate planning. My father's lawyers made sure of it. You're welcome to fight it in court, but you'll lose. And you'll spend money you don't have on lawyers while you're fighting 2 corporate lawsuits. Vic, please, let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. Pack your things. Be out by Friday. She hung up. Melissa called an hour later. Vic, I just heard. About the divorce, are you okay? Victoria's hand tightened on her phone. I'm fine. What happened? Ethan said you filed out of nowhere. Did he tell you why? He said he doesn't know. He said you won't talk to him. And you believe him? A pause. What do you mean? I mean, Victoria said carefully, that I know Melissa. I know everything. Know what? About you and Ethan. The silence on the other end was so complete that Victoria thought the call had dropped. Melissa? I don't... Her voice was shaking. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Not now. I have photographs, text messages, emails. I have everything. Vic, how long? What? How long were you sleeping with my husband? Melissa started crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. How long? A year. Maybe longer. I don't know. I'm so sorry, Vic. It just happened. We didn't mean for it to... Victoria hung up. She threw her phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, screen cracked but still functioning. She didn't cry. She'd thought maybe she would when this moment came. When the confession was finally out there, when the betrayal was confirmed beyond any doubt. But instead, she just felt cold. Empty. She picked up her phone and blocked both of their numbers. Ethan didn't leave by Friday. He was still in the house when Victoria came home from work, sitting at the kitchen table with a beer in front of him. We need to talk, he said. No, we don't. Vic, please. Just listen to me for 5 minutes. She set her briefcase down. 5 minutes. That's it. He stood, running his hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she'd seen 1,000 times. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But it wasn't... It wasn't what you think. Really? What was it then? It was a mistake. A horrible mistake. But it didn't mean anything. Victoria laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. A year-long affair didn't mean anything? I was confused. I was dealing with a lot of pressure at work, and you were always so focused on your career, and Melissa was just there. But I love you, Vic. I love you. Not her. You texted her, "I love you," 47 times. I read the messages. His face went pale. You went through my phone? You're seriously asking about privacy after what you did? That's different. Get out. Vic, get out now, or I'm calling the police and having you removed. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he grabbed his beer and walked upstairs. She heard him moving around in their bedroom packing. 30 minutes later, he came back down with 2 suitcases. Where am I supposed to go? He asked. Victoria looked at him standing there in the foyer of the house they'd bought together, the house where they'd planned to raise children someday, and felt absolutely nothing. That's not my problem, she said. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Ethan's lawyer tried to fight the asset transfers, but William Chen's legal team had done their job too well. Everything was documented, dated, justified. The transfers had occurred weeks before Victoria filed for divorce. There was no proof of fraudulent intent. Your client signed a prenuptial agreement, Robert reminded Ethan's lawyer during a meeting. The house was purchased with funds from Mr. Chen as a gift. The investment accounts were Mrs. Brooks's separate property, acquired before the marriage. The savings account was funded primarily by her income. Mr. Brooks has no claim to any of it. She moved those assets specifically to avoid the division of marital property, Ethan's lawyer argued. Prove it. They couldn't. Ethan tried one more time to talk to Victoria directly, cornering her outside the courthouse after a hearing. Is this really what you want? He asked. To destroy me? She looked at him. I'm not destroying you, Ethan. I'm just not saving you. There's a difference. I'm facing 2 lawsuits I can't afford. I lost my job. I have nowhere to live. And you're taking everything. I earned everything. You cheated on me with my best friend. What exactly did you think was going to happen? I thought you'd at least try to understand. Understand what? That you're sorry you got caught? He flinched. Victoria walked away. The corporate lawsuits settled 8 weeks later. Ethan couldn't afford to fight them. His lawyer negotiated a settlement, $75,000 to Zenith Marketing, $50,000 to Sterling Communications, plus his agreement to never work in the marketing industry again. He didn't have that kind of money. Victoria heard through her attorney that he'd tried to take out a loan but was rejected. No job, no assets, terrible credit. He'd apparently moved in with his brother in Indianapolis. Melissa's settlement was similar, $60,000, agreement to leave the PR industry. Victoria heard through the grapevine that Melissa had moved back to her hometown in Wisconsin. Someone said she was working at her father's hardware store. The divorce was finalized in March. Victoria Brooks became Victoria Chen again. She kept nothing of Ethan's except the wedding photos, which she put in a box in her father's basement. She wasn't sentimental, but she also wasn't ready to throw away 7 years of her life. On the day the divorce became final, her father took her to dinner at their favorite steakhouse downtown. How are you feeling? He asked over wine. I don't know yet. That's fair. I keep thinking I should feel guilty about the way it ended, about how thoroughly I destroyed both of them. Her father was quiet for a moment. Do you feel guilty? No. Then don't force yourself to. They made their choices. You simply responded to those choices with strategic intelligence. You're saying what I did was okay? I'm saying, her father said carefully, that you protected yourself and your assets from people who were actively trying to deceive and use you. You did nothing illegal. You merely played the game better than they did. Victoria took a sip of wine. It doesn't feel like I won. Winning sometimes just means not losing everything. 3 months has passed now. Victoria was working late at the office when she got a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Victoria? It's Melissa. Victoria's hand tightened on the phone. How did you get this number? I called the office. Your assistant gave it to me. I know you blocked my cell. I blocked you for a reason. I know, but I really need to talk to you. Please, just for a few minutes. Victoria should have hung up, should have ended the call and blocked this number too. Instead, she said, You have 5 minutes. Thank you. Melissa's voice was shaking. I'm calling because I need you to know the truth. The whole truth. I know the truth. You slept with my husband for a year. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? It started because Ethan approached me. About 6 months after your wedding, he said he'd made a mistake, that he'd married you for your money and your family connections, but that he'd fallen for me instead. Victoria felt something cold settle in her stomach. What? He pursued me, Vic. For months. He told me he loved me, that he was going to leave you as soon as he'd secured his position at your father's company. He said he just needed time to make sure he'd get a good settlement in the divorce. That's a lie. I thought so too at first. But then he showed me things. Documents. He had a whole plan. He was going to wait until he'd been married to you for 5 years, then file for divorce claiming irreconcilable differences. He said 5 years was the magic number for getting the best settlement in Illinois. Victoria's mind was racing. Why would he tell you this? Because he wanted me to help him. He said if we pooled our information, him on the inside with your father's company, me with my PR connections, we could both leverage it into better positions, better careers. He made it sound like we were partners. And you believed him? I was in love with him, Vic. I know how stupid that sounds. I know I betrayed you, but I really thought he loved me, that we were going to be together after the divorce. What changed? The lawsuits. When we both got fired and sued, he turned on me. Blamed me for everything. Said I'd seduced him, that I'd pushed him to share confidential information. He said if I didn't take full responsibility, he'd tell everyone that I'd initiated the whole thing. Victoria was quiet. I know you probably don't believe me, Melissa continued. I know I destroyed our friendship, but I needed you to know that from the beginning, Ethan was using both of us. He married you for your money. He seduced me to help him take it. If that's true, why are you telling me now? What do you want? I don't want anything. I couldn't live with you thinking I betrayed you for no reason. I betrayed you because I was stupid and blind and in love with a man who was manipulating me. But he was manipulating you too, Vic, from the day he met you. The line went quiet. I'm sorry, Melissa whispered. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. She hung up. Victoria sat at her desk for a long time, staring at her phone. She told herself not to dig deeper. The divorce was final. Ethan was out of her life. It was over, but she couldn't let it go. The next morning, she called Patricia. I need you to look into something else, Victoria said. I need to know if my ex-husband had a plan to divorce me before the affair started. What kind of plan? The kind that involves waiting a specific number of years to maximize his settlement. Patricia was quiet for a moment. That would require access to his personal files, computers, communications from before the affair. Can you get them? Maybe. It won't be cheap. I don't care. It took Patricia 3 weeks. She came back with a laptop, Ethan's old personal computer that he'd apparently sold to a pawn shop after the divorce. I had a contact buy it and restore the hard drive, Patricia explained. You're not going to like what I found. She was right. Victoria didn't like it. The laptop contained folders dating back 6 years, before Ethan proposed, before they were engaged. There were files labeled investment strategy and financial planning. Inside were spreadsheets, calculations of Victoria's net worth, estimates of what a divorce settlement might look like after 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years of marriage. Research on Illinois divorce laws, specifically regarding division of assets acquired during marriage. There were notes, too. Father is protective but respects persistence. Showed genuine interest in company. Important. Prenup likely. Need to negotiate carefully. Can't appear too interested in money. Wedding gift for house from father. Could claim half in settlement if careful. And then dated 2 years into their marriage. Victoria is trusting. Easy to manage. Melissa is access point. Close friend. Could be useful. Consider approach. Victoria read that line over and over. Ethan had targeted Melissa, deliberately. Not because he loved her, but because she was useful. And Melissa, blinded by infatuation and manipulation, had played right into his hands. They'd both been pawns. Victoria met with Robert, her attorney, the next day. "Can I use this?" she asked, showing him the files. Robert reviewed everything carefully. "The divorce is already final, but if you wanted to pursue fraud charges, claiming he married you under false pretenses with the specific intent to defraud you, this could be evidence. Could I win? Maybe. It would be expensive and time-consuming, and criminal charges would be hard to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Civil fraud charges are more likely, but even then, it's complicated." Victoria leaned back in her chair. "What if I don't want to pursue charges? What if I just want him to know I found out?" Robert smiled slightly. "That's between you and your conscience. Legally, I can't advise on emotional satisfaction." Victoria thought about it for a week. Then she made a decision. She compiled everything, the spreadsheets, the notes, the planning documents, into a single PDF file. She wrote a short message. "I found these. I know everything. You didn't just betray me. You never loved me at all. You planned this from the beginning. I want you to know that I know. I want you to understand that you failed. You got nothing. You are nothing. And you will carry that knowledge for the rest of your life." She sent it to Ethan's email address. Then she sent a separate email to Melissa. "I believe you. He used both of us. I'm not sure I can ever forgive what you did, but I understand now that you were a victim too. I hope you're finding peace. I'm trying to do the same." She hit send on both emails. Then she closed her laptop and poured herself a glass of wine. Ethan never responded. Melissa sent a short reply 2 days later. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Victoria never wrote back. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. The divorce decree felt like the first full breath she'd taken since watching him leave their house for the last time. Victoria Chen sits in her corner office at Chen Capital, looking out over Lake Michigan. She's been promoted to CEO 6 months ago, when her father finally stepped down completely. She's the youngest person in the company's history to hold the position. The company is thriving. They just closed a deal worth $40 million. Victoria led the negotiations herself. She's dating someone new, a neurosurgeon named David she met at a hospital fundraiser. He's kind and funny and has no idea who her father is. He likes her for her, not her money or her connections. They're taking things slowly. She's in therapy twice a week, working through the betrayal and learning to trust again. It's hard. Some days are harder than others, but she's doing it. Her phone buzzes. A text from David. "Still on for dinner tonight?" She smiles and texts back. "Absolutely, can't wait." There's a knock on her door. Her assistant pokes her head in. "Your 2 o'clock is here." "Thanks. Send them in." Victoria stands, smooths her skirt, and prepares for the meeting. She's learned something over the past 2 years. Betrayal can destroy you, or it can refine you. It can make you bitter, or it can make you stronger. She chose stronger. One morning, Victoria is reading the newspaper over breakfast when she sees a small article on page 6. Former marketing executive arrested for fraud. She reads the details. Ethan Brooks, arrested for running a scam targeting wealthy women through dating apps. Apparently, he'd been catfishing women, building relationships online, then asking for money to handle emergencies. He'd been caught when one of the women reported him to the police. Victoria sets the paper down. She feels nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication. Just a sort of distant acknowledgement that people tend to show you who they really are if you watch long enough. She finishes her coffee and goes to work. Victoria marries David in a small ceremony at a vineyard in Napa Valley exactly 1 year later. 20 guests. Simple. Elegant. No drama. Her father walks her down the aisle. He's 70 now, moving a little slower, but his eyes are sharp and proud. "You sure about this one?" he whispers as they walk. "I'm sure." "Good. He seems like a decent man." He is. David is waiting at the altar in a gray suit, smiling at her like she's the only person in the world. They exchange vows they wrote themselves. They promise honesty, partnership, respect. They promise to be there for each other, in success and in failure, in joy and in sorrow. And this time, Victoria believes it. 5 years into her new marriage, the house was full of laughter. Victoria and David have 2 children, a daughter named Grace and a son named William, after her father. They live in the same house in Wilmette, the one Victoria fought so hard to protect during the divorce. She bought it back from her father's estate after he passed away 3 years ago. Sometimes she walks through the rooms and remembers the pain of that period. The betrayal, the anger, the calculated destruction she rained down on 2 people who hurt her. She doesn't regret it, but she also doesn't dwell on it. She's moved forward, built a new life, found happiness in places she didn't expect. One afternoon, she's at the playground with Grace when another mother approaches her. "Victoria? Victoria Chen?" She turns. For a moment, she doesn't recognize the woman, thin, tired-looking, hair pulled back in a ponytail. Then she realizes, "Melissa." They stare at each other for a long moment. "I wasn't sure if you'd recognize me," Melissa says quietly. "I saw you from across the park and almost didn't come over." "How are you?" "I'm better. Working on it. I moved back to the city last year. I'm in therapy, trying to rebuild." "That's good. I heard you got married, had kids. I'm happy for you. Really." Victoria nods. "Thank you. I think about you sometimes," Melissa says. "About what I did, about how badly I hurt you. I know I can never make it right, but I want you to know that I'm genuinely sorry. Not sorry I got caught, sorry for what I did." Victoria looks at this woman who was once her best friend, her sister, the person she trusted most in the world. "I believe you," Victoria says finally, "and I've forgiven you. Not for you, for me. Because holding on to that anger was poisoning me. Have you really forgiven me?" "I'm working on it. Every day." Melissa nods, tears in her eyes. "That's more than I deserve." "Maybe. But it's what I need." They stand there for another moment. Then Melissa reaches out and squeezes Victoria's hand once, gently. "Thank you," she whispers. Then she walks away. Victoria watches her go, then turns back to her daughter playing on the swings. Grace is laughing, pumping her legs, flying higher and higher. "Push me, Mommy," she calls. Victoria smiles and walks over. She pushes her daughter on the swings, feeling the sun warm on her face, and thinks about how far she's come. The woman who once planned revenge now planned empowerment seminars. Victoria Chen stands in front of a room full of women at a conference on financial literacy for divorcees. She's been invited to speak about protecting assets during divorce proceedings, her area of expertise after everything she went through. "The most important thing," she tells the audience, is to be prepared, not just emotionally, but legally and financially. Know what you own, know your rights, know your worth, both personally and economically. She talks for 45 minutes. She shares her story, not in detail, but the broad strokes. A marriage that ended in betrayal, assets she protected through careful planning, a divorce that could have destroyed her, but instead made her stronger. Afterward, women line up to talk to her. A young woman in her 30s, crying, tells Victoria that her husband just emptied their joint account. An older woman in her 50s says she's been married 30 years and just found out her husband has a second family. A mother of 3 says she has no idea how she's going to afford a divorce, but knows she needs to leave. Victoria talks to each of them, gives them advice, contact information for attorneys, resources for financial planning. "You're not alone," she tells each one, "and you're stronger than you think." When the last woman leaves, Victoria packs up her materials and heads to her car. Her phone rings. David. "How'd the speech go?" he asks. "Good. Really good, actually." "I'm proud of you." "Thank you." "Grace wants to know if you'll be home in time for dinner. We're making spaghetti." Victoria smiles. "Tell her I'll be there in 30 minutes, and I'm bringing ice cream." She hears Grace cheering in the background. She drives home through the city, watching the sun set over Lake Michigan, and thinks about the journey that brought her here. The betrayal could have broken her. Instead, it taught her exactly how strong she was. It taught her that sometimes the worst things that happen to you become the foundation for the best things yet to come. It taught her that revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about protection. Sometimes it's about refusing to be a victim. Sometimes it's about taking back your power and using it to build something better. She pulls into her driveway. David is standing on the porch with Grace and William, all 3 of them smiling. Her family, her real family. Victoria gets out of the car, walks up the steps, and hugs them all. "I'm home," she says. And she means it. This story isn't about revenge, not really. It's about self-protection. It's about recognizing when someone is using you and having the strength to stop them. It's about the difference between being vindictive and being strategic. Victoria didn't destroy Ethan and Melissa out of cruelty. She exposed them for what they were. People who saw her as a mark, as a means to an end, as someone to exploit. And when she protected herself, legally, financially, completely, she wasn't being vengeful. She was being smart. The real revenge wasn't ruining their careers or their relationship. The real revenge was moving on, building a better life, finding genuine love and happiness with someone who valued her for who she was, not what she had. The real revenge was thriving, because at the end of the day, the best revenge isn't destruction. It's success, it's happiness, it's living well, and Victoria Chen learned to live very well indeed. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Share your own story of overcoming betrayal. You never know who might need to hear it. Remember, you're stronger than you think. You're worth more than someone else's lies. And you have the power to rebuild, no matter what's been broken. Until next time, stay strong, stay smart, and never let anyone convince you that you deserve less than everything.